Been listening to these great podcast interviews with Loren. She's an Alexander Technique teacher and an occupational therapist in New York City. She's got a terrific blog, and on these podcasts she is interviewed by Robert Rickover, who's another Alexander Technique teacher. And so they did one special podcast just on occupational therapists, how they can be helped by the Alexander Technique. So an occupational therapist looks at who you are, what your life is, and all the things that you have to do to fulfill your roles and responsibilities. Now, if illness or injury come along, disrupt your ability to do those things, an occupational therapist will help you to get back to where you were before the injury, or find other things that give you pleasure, make you feel useful in the world. So Loren is just so articulate. Just love listening to her talk with Rickover. She mentions that before she took Alexander lessons, she was in pain all the time and grumpy as a result. And it affected my ability to do my job. After I took Alexander lessons, I became aware of how uncomfortable I was in my body. And letting some of that go improved my ability to be an effective therapist. So she had a very physical job at the time, and she was lifting patients all day. So every time she touched a patient, it was kind of like another opportunity to hurt herself. And when she'd work with the patients who were in bed, she'd kind of hunch over like this. She'd bend at the waist instead of bending at the knees and the hips. And she'd come home every day, understandably, with a terrible backache. But after taking Alexander lessons, instead of bending over at the waist and hunching in her spine, she'd use her legs instead to bend over, and her back stopped hurting. So one way to classify Alexander Technique is as NDT. That's neurodevelopmental treatment. So if you're an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, kind of link Alexander Technique under that subset of NDT. Loren's so fun here. She talks about working for a hand therapist in Manhattan, and she was so eager to talk about Alexander Technique and urge her patients to get lessons that she got fired. She got fired from her job working for a hand therapist. And Rickover makes a great point that anytime you touch somebody, information about your nervous system is being conveyed to them. So if your nervous system is in better shape, they're going to get something much more pleasant than if you're stiff or holding yourself rigidly. I remember this very plain woman who I was not attracted to, but when she touched me, it just felt so good that then I became attracted. She had such a beautiful, light touch because she had such good use of herself, such good posture. So this would apply to any kind of body work or someone who gives massages. They're often in pain, and if you learn to use your body more efficiently, you'll get better results with less work, and people will have much more enjoyment from your touch. And if you specialize in pain management and ergonomics, it's important to know how critical someone's posture is if you want to change their repetitive strain problems. Virtually 100% of repetitive strain injuries are related to posture and use of yourself. So if you're changing a person's work habits, you want to work with somebody, take their pain away, but if you want to teach them how to keep the pain away, even if you're no longer working with them, if you're interested in helping someone to learn to take care of themselves, then Alexander Technique is the way to go.